Uh-oh, we got a moron here.
Presenting the distinguished international news commentator and foreign correspondent,
Smaulgld. This has been an extraordinary week in world affairs.
Now I told Hillary Clinton that that's moronic.
Welcome to Smaulgld's Moronica for the week ended April 21st, 2018. The week's news that made you scratch your head, cringe, or just say, that's moronic. Well, this just in. Uh-oh, we got a moron here. Justin Trudeau at the top of Moronica again this week. And here Trudeau exits the airplane and waves triumphantly to the crowd. No, there's no one here to greet Justin Trudeau. Uh-oh, but Trudeau, that doesn't stop him. He's in France promoting Canada as a country that favors, get this, diversity, inclusion, environmental protection. Canada countering tides of cynicism with positive approach, Trudeau tells French National Assembly. So now he's out in France preaching to the French how diverse and inclusive his country is. Now about that matter of who paid for those Indian costumes that Justin Trudeau's family wore. Well, the bureaucratic arm of the Prime Minister's officer says it hasn't paid a dime for any of those clothes, shoes, or fashion accessories worn by Justin Trudeau. Starbucks is racist. We're going to spend a little time on this because this one is moronic on many, 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 many levels. So the first story, when it broke, there were two black gentlemen sitting at a Starbucks, and the initial, before all the facts came out, news was they got removed, and it really looked like, look, Starbucks, you're supposed to know better. You don't remove people just because they're black. There's a thing called the Civil Rights Act of 1964. If any company should know, it should be Starbucks that this shouldn't happen. And of course, that was the initial reaction, and that's where the protests started. Then, of course, you find out more facts as you go along. And what had happened was the two gentlemen were waiting for a friend, and they were real estate agents. And they hadn't bought anything yet, and sometimes that's what people do. You sit and you wait for your friend, and maybe you order later. And then one of them wanted to use the bathroom. They told them that company policy is that only paying patrons get to use the bathroom. So far, nothing wrong there. That's how it works. Then I think they sat there longer, and I think the manager got a little antsy about them being there, taking up space, wanted to use the bathroom, so she asked them to leave. And they said, which I guess they didn't think anything of it. And then the police were called. Now, at that point, you could say, well, why is she bothering these people? Well, maybe company policy, because she's told that you can't use the bathroom unless you buy something. They don't want to buy anything. And finally, she's asked them to leave. Now, the racism part could be in that, does she ask other people? Does Starbucks in general ask people to leave that don't order anything? Does Starbucks Does Starbucks, for example, let white people use the bathroom even if they don't order anything? These are things that you wouldn't know, and we don't know whether they happen or not at Starbucks. We just know what happened in this case, and the policy is that if you don't buy anything, you can't use the bathroom. If you don't buy anything, you can't sit there. Now, I don't know if they say if you don't buy anything, call the cops, but I would suppose that's the way you would enforce that rule if the patrons decide they're not going to listen to you. So the cops come, and they say, okay, what are you doing? And I think they were there for like 10 minutes asking them to leave, and they just said, no, we're not going to leave. And they didn't leave, and then they called backup, and then finally they were arrested. Now, as far as I'm concerned, it could have been avoided not just from not calling the cops, but the real issue is when they were called. And when the cops arrived, that was their opportunity to say, okay, sorry, officer. And what I would have done in that case, I would have been like, screw Starbucks. If we can't sit and wait 20 minutes for somebody to come, but I'm not going to get myself arrested over, sitting in Starbucks. It's just not worth it. But in any event, who knows if this was staged? You never know with these things. They get people talking. But the reaction is what was really, really moronic. Starbucks then decides that they need to have a re-education training session, close all the stores, have 8,000 employees learn something. Now, I would think that the people at Starbucks probably would know better, but this is not, to me, this is more of a policy issue probably than a race issue, that the people should be instructed, how do you handle a sensitive situation where you have customers, you're not sure where they're going to stay, you're not sure if they're going to order anything, they want to use the bathroom, when do you call the cops? Well, what's interesting is the Civil Rights Act basically says you can't refuse service to anyone. This thing is so twisted on its head now, Starbucks wasn't refusing service to them. The patrons were refusing to take the service. They said, no, we don't want to buy anything. We're just going to sit here and wait. And by the way, can we use the bathroom? So this is already upside down in that Starbucks was presumably happy to have them as customers, but these guys didn't want to be customers. So if you remember, and the reason I mentioned Starbucks should know better, I think after Ferguson a few years back, they made a big deal about have a conversation about race with your coffee, and the baristas were encouraged to write race together. So you would see they would have some racial sensitivity, and you wouldn't expect this type of thing to happen. But going through the facts, it doesn't seem like anything really bad happened other than when the cops came and they decided they weren't going to leave, well, then they got arrested, and that's what gives Starbucks the bad eye. But that doesn't mean that Starbucks policy is wrong. I think most restaurants don't just allow anyone to come off the street, sit down, take up space from paying patrons, and then get to use the bathroom, and then say, nah, we're just going to sit here, we're going to wait even longer. And when the cops come and say, look, you got to leave, they say, nah, you know what, we're going to stay here, we just feel like it, and then they get arrested. What happened in the aftermath now was even more moronic. Not only did Starbucks say they're going to have this training, but the CEO meets with the two guys. They have some kind of emotional meeting where they say they're so sorry that this happened. Sorry that they got arrested, because they wouldn't have gotten arrested if they said it's time to go and they just left, but they insisted on staying there. Now, here's what gets even worse. I want to look at this from the perspective of the employees. Not only do 8,000 people now have to go to some type of re-education training, I don't know what's in the training, but Eric Holder's involved. I mean, this is very political. Eric Holder is the former U.S. attorney. I don't know what he's going to have to say, but this is going to go way beyond policy, I'm sure. This is going to go into societal racism and so on. And I mean, for $9 an hour, well, I guess you're getting paid for it. You might as well sit and listen to it. But it just seems like it's over the top for what happened, because really, I'm not sure anything really happened that was that bad. But in any event, the woman who called the cops, the manager, she's been fired. I mean, she's considered the worst person now. She should have handled it better. She shouldn't have followed the policy. She should have just let him sit there. She shouldn't have called the cops. She should have given the bathroom key. Who knows? But here's what's even more ridiculous. So that woman is fired basically for following policy. But there was a guy who visited Starbucks, and he just had a quick, brilliant idea that he was going to go into the Starbucks, African-American gentleman, and demand his coffee as reparations, because he claimed that Starbucks now has a reparations policy. You can get a voucher, you can get free coffee. So he went in there, and here's what happened. He demands his coffee. And there he is.
How you doing?
Good, how are you?
All right, I heard y'all was racist, so I came to get my free coffee.
I saw that.
Yeah, I heard you guys don't like black people, so I wanted to get my Starbucks reparations voucher. What's that?
Is that a real thing?
It's a real thing.
I mean, I'll give it to you. I saw that on my Twitter last night. I was like,
Yeah, I need a free
I'll
coffee.
give you a free coffee.
That's what I'm talking about.
All right, that's what it's talking about. Now, this woman should be fired. This woman, I don't think there's anything in the manual that says if someone comes in and asks for free coffee, states a reason, you say, like, wow, I saw that on my Twitter. Here you go. How much coffee do you want? She should be fired. There's nothing there's nothing I would imagine in the, and I guarantee you they don't mention, they may even praise how she handled it. Say, well, that was really like, commend her for her initiative. Someone came in, she diffused the situation well and said, sure, whatever you want. Any event, that to me is the most moronic thing. And now they're going to have 8,000 people listen to or learn something. And I'm not sure they're really going to learn how to be better baristas or even better people. But that's Starbucks for you. That's what you get when you pay $6 for a cup of coffee. You get a full. Here's Eric Holder. He's going to help Starbucks train employees. Now, what experience does Eric Holder have in training employees? I don't think he has any. I think he's been in politics his whole life. He may be a distinguished figure. He may be attorney general, but is that really who you need? Well, I think Eric Holder is running for president, and I think he might want to use this type of, in 2020, this type of incident is why he needs to get in there and make sure this kind of stuff doesn't happen anymore. Moving on to more Moronica. I love when they always talk about how much money states spend on students. No, they don't spend money on students. They spend money on teachers, teacher salaries, and teacher pensions. And as far as I can tell, there is no correlation between the amount of money you spend on teachers and benefits and salaries and how well children do. Moving on. Elon Musk. Now, if you remember on April Fool's, this guy said that Tesla was going bankrupt. They've never been so bankrupt. Like that was some kind of big joke. Well, Elon knew. New lawsuit alleges Musk knowingly lied about model production. April Fool's, right, Elon? I guess that's just not true. Now, dopey mice. I love this one. Here you go with the mouse with the spliff. Police say nearly 1,200 pounds of pot missing from a warehouse was eaten by mice up in smoke. Now, that's a dopey mouse. Bitcoin. Uh-oh. Now, John McAfee, if you remember him, he was the guy who said that Bitcoin was going to go to $1 million or $2 million in 2 years, or he was going to eat a part of anatomy between his legs. Well, he says he stands fully by my certainty there will be no eating on December 31st, 2020. So he's fully expecting either to just not uphold this part of the bargain, or he thinks that Bitcoin will be $1 million or $2 million. Now this one is moronic, but it's a sad moronic. This guy here, supposedly a, quote, prominent gay rights lawyer, burns himself to death in New York to protest global warming. This really isn't moronic. This is actually sad. This is somebody who became mentally ill, I suppose, over global warming. He was so distraught, apparently, that people weren't taking global warming seriously. And in a way, I don't think anyone's going to take it any more seriously because he happened to kill himself over it. Well, Elon Musk can't stay out of the Moronica here. Analysts spot $1.4 billion hole in Tesla's balance sheet. April Fool's again, huh, Eli? London's knife control issue again in Moronica. Machete attack every 90 minutes in gun-free Britain. Now, we saw last year they're having summits. Meanwhile, they've hired 900 officers to fight hate speech. And now they have a knife epidemic. And one of the ways they're fighting it is by having one of these We Are the World type or We Are the Children videos where the children say, I'm not going to get in trouble. I'm not going to carry no knives. All right, that'll work off. And we also saw last week where they have a knife drop-off point. You can just put your knife in the bin, and therefore you won't be a coward anymore. There you go. Off you go. Right, that'll solve it. Dick's Sporting Goods. I always give companies the benefit of the doubt. I give Starbucks the benefit of the doubt. If they want to run a company where they want to make sure that they're racially sensitive, more power to them. But when they mess up and they somehow don't achieve their objectives, that's when I call moronic. Well, Dick's Sporting Goods. They want a virtue signal and they want to do their part and they don't want to be accused of being terrorists or child killers, and they sell guns, so they decide they're not going to sell these guns anymore. The first thing they decided was, even though the law allows an 18-year-old to buy a gun, they're not going to serve him. Okay, Maybe they get away with that. Maybe it's against the law. Maybe it's a violation of a 19-year-old's rights if he wants to buy a gun and a company says that you can't buy it when there's a legal right to buy it. You're up against, we reserve the right to serve anybody, up against someone's basically civil rights. That's age discrimination. Well, put that aside. Dick's Sporting Goods went one step further. Now, I can understand not selling to 18-year-olds. They figure we don't want to be responsible for some nut who buys a gun at 18, 19, and 20, and then they bring it back to, they say they bought the gun at Dick's Sporting Goods. That's not good for business. So you can justify what they do on the business judgment rule. And I didn't think that that was over the top. I didn't really make a deal out of that, call that moronic. But this one is moronic. So Dick's Sporting Goods decides, rather than return the guns that they pull from the shelves, they're going to just destroy them. Now you think, well, that's great. Well, those guns will never be used again. Yeah, well, at some point you have a duty to your shareholders. If you return the guns, and who knows the value of these? And this is, to me, a lawsuit waiting to happen, a shareholder lawsuit. This is corporate waste. And that corporate waste is generally hard to prove because the courts never really like to second judge a business judgment. If you get something for them, they don't want to say, well, that wasn't enough, you could have done better. The courts are not in the business of second guessing companies, what they call business judgment. And I've seen this in many cases where a company does something really boneheaded, they lose money, and then the shareholders sue and they say, well, that's what the company wanted to do, they thought it through, we're not going to second guess them. But this one, I think if you wanted to bring a case, they probably could get away with it because they're not getting anything for the guns. They can return them and get their money back. And unless they can't get their money back and there's a no returns policy, or they lose 99% when they return them and the manufacturer won't pay for them, otherwise they have to, I would imagine, they have some duty to replace that value. And the standard that I looked up was that if you want to sue a company, you go plaintiff lawyers, you have to show that the company authorized a transaction so one-sided that no business person of ordinary sound judgment could conclude that the corporation received adequate consideration. Well, in this case, they're not going to receive any because they're going to actually spend money and time to destroy the guns. So I don't know, other than they could possibly argue they're getting goodwill, they're preventing bad will from coming upon them by not returning the guns. I just think this is ridiculous to destroy the guns. They can return them. They can get their money back. Who knows? But that's Dick's Sporting Goods. And companies like this also, they lose customers over this. Now, maybe they gain customers. Maybe they can argue that it's an investment to gain customers who are so against the Second Amendment, so against guns, that they're going to gain customers. I don't know. All right. Now, Kamala Harris, she was on last week as well. Congress must take action now to dramatically limit Trump's ability to fire special counsel Robert Mueller. Again, this woman is a lawyer. I don't see how these people in Congress or the Senate think passing a law to stop Trump from firing the special counsel when he's going to veto such a bill. I just don't get how they even think that even makes sense. Practically, he's not going to fire him anyway. My view, and you can check out my recent YouTube on this, I actually think that Mueller's going to want to have this thing shut down before the Inspector General's report comes out next month, because in my opinion, the Inspector General's report is going to name a lot of people in the FBI for malfeasance and perhaps wrongdoing and criminal referrals, and he doesn't want to be the special counsel. If Rosenstein is mentioned, if Comey is mentioned, McCabe mentioned again, and they start talking about the Clinton investigation. Because remember, this whole thing, and if the Comey memos come up about why it was wrong, and the Inspector General, they say that Comey should never release those memos. Those memos are classified. It goes against FBI protocol. He shouldn't be on a book tour. And then Rosenstein created the special counsel, created Mueller's position on the basis of the Comey memos. The Inspector General has anything to say about that, then Mueller is just twisting in the wind, because he's been appointed by people that the Inspector General has I project or predict will basically take the task in his report. So that kind of undermines his whole credibility, and I think he doesn't want to be the special counsel when all this comes out, and that's why I think Rudy Giuliani is going to talk to him and I would imagine shut this down. And I think Mueller's escape hatch is to allow the Cohen investigation to go on outside of what he's doing, because that'll be held in the Southern District of New York, and maybe the DNC might have their lawsuit going on. Uh-oh. Now here's one. Women are dying. I love the dramatics. And what are they dying from? It's got to be something someone did. Yeah, this guy is Keith Ellison. He is the Democratic National Chair. Women are dying because Democrats are losing elections. That's just moronic. I don't even know how you can... Hog Wild. Uh-oh. Well, David Hogg's back at it again after successful calling of the troops to boycott Laura Ingraham because he was offended about some comment she made about him not getting into college. Well, he's now telling his Twitter followers to boycott BlackRock and Vanguard because they're the largest holders of American outdoor brands and Sturm Ruger. I don't know what those companies are, but they probably sell guns or something. Well, always take your investment advice from a 17-year-old. You never know, he may ride his bike somewhere and protest in front of your house. Troubling pro-gun message. Now this is just total Moronica. This comes from us from Marvis Sarcasticus. There's some movie out there, and I don't know what the movie is, but it's called A Quiet Place. And it says it deserves it rave reviews. I don't know what the movie's about, but it says its pro-gun message is troubling. And for what I managed to piece together, here he says, I saw the movie, there's literally one shot fired. At the very end is the mom shot one of the aliens. And I suppose that is a hooray for the strong, independent woman who managed to ward off the aliens. And this is, I saw something, they're worried about not trusting the authorities to take care of you. That, you know, this woman maybe had been a prepper and she had been able to take care of herself. And that's what a lot of gun owners think, is that they're going to be able to protect themselves. Yeah. And here's from the article saying, your community won't be any help either. There's no way you can negotiate or coexist peacefully with the invaders. No, they're alien invaders. No, your only hope is to festoon your property with security cameras, learn how to hunt, and prepare your own food, grow a shaggy beard if applicable, and most handily and most importantly, keep a shotgun handy. And the economists didn't like that idea. They didn't like the idea that someone could take care of themselves and not place all of their trust in security with the, quote, authorities. Even Joe Biden said, get a shotgun. So that woman had a shot. I don't know what she had. I didn't see the movie. Well, it never ends. Trump and Hitler. Now, this is offensive, I would think, to any rational person. But Holocaust survivors, it's in minimalization when they try to say that Trump is Hitler. This is Nazi stormtrooper tactics. No, it's not. No, you can dislike Trump, you can hate Trump, you can call him names, but he's not Hitler. He's not, and that's. This stuff comes up all on. Now, this moron of Cambridge Analytica, Trump used the same tactics as Hitler to get elected. Yes, yeah, he used the same. These people are just clutching for straws. Now, John Harwood. What is his... Okay, now Sean Hannity, he's criticizing Sean Hannity is saying he's not really a journalist. Well, it could be. I mean, Sean Hannity, in my opinion, is an advocate, and maybe he's not a journalist. But this guy isn't one either. This is the guy, according to WikiLeaks, and no one refuted that these are his emails. He was working with the Democratic Party. I don't know, it was Podesta or somebody. What questions should I ask? How do I handle this? That's not journalism either, Mr. Harwood. All right. What else we got? Okay. The last two stories are about New York City. And first, Andrew Cuomo, here's his priorities. He signs an executive order today that grants parolees the right to vote in New York State. They serve their time. They should be allowed to participate in our democracy. Not full-on Moronica. I mean, your priorities, that you're going to use your power to make sure that people who have committed crimes get to vote. Questionable, not full-on Moronica. But then he gets really moronic. So I found this, and I didn't realize that he had done this, but he had stated, I don't have it in here, but I remember what it was. He said something like, I am a Muslim. I am a gay guy. and he named all these, but he never said he was a Christian. He never said, he basically said that I am a New Yorker. And he labeled a whole bunch of people he could be, but he never said I'm a married man. He never said I'm a Christian. He never said I'm Italian American. No, he said he was all these other things. He was a transgender. I don't know what he said. He said he was everything. And it just shows the pandering that this guy does. But here's a law now in New York State. And remember Hugs Not Drugs? I think that came out in the 80s. The idea was that we would all be better off if people just gave each other a hug and laid off the drugs. Well, New York City, it's not just a hug. It is sexual harassment. And it is illegal in the workplace. Report it and end it. And that's where we're going to end it today. So thank you very much for joining me on Smaulgld's Moronica for the week ended April 21st. Tomorrow we will do the week in review in case you missed it. Top gold, silver, and crypto stories for the week ended April 22nd. Thank you very much for listening. If you enjoyed this, please consider becoming a Smaulgld patron or donating via PayPal, Bitcoin, or Litecoin. Thank you very much for listening.